Hello, hi, welcome back to my channel. I am the one who writes, aka that cat who be writing. Also, welcome back to another chat with Kat, which means that I will have interesting things on the screen for you, but you don't need to watch them in order to listen to the chat. And I wanted to kind of make a part 2 to my great lock-in video. However, I will say that it's not necessary to watch that video to understand the context of this video. Though I would greatly appreciate if you did watch that video. That would be very nice. So basically, the TLDR that you need to know about that video right now to understand the context of this video is that I talked about changing my mindset in order to ease myself into things and get myself out of burnout. But I didn't talk about how I changed my mindset. I just kind of talked about the victories of changing my mindset, which isn't that helpful if someone is like watching it, wanting to live vicariously through me and then test out the little things that I do for myself onto them. So I wanted to come back and be a little bit more helpful in that. So let's get to it. Basically, how I changed my mindset was as soon as I decided that I was in burnout and it wasn't going to get better, and as soon as I decided that I was in burnout and it wasn't going to get better by bullying myself through burnout, by like just hating on myself or going like, well, I thought you liked writing, or I thought you liked this, I thought this was your passion, I guess not, I guess you're a liar, blah blah blah. Just like really unhelpful, unuseful things, and just like very mean things to like talk to yourself. I mean, like, there's other people in the world to be mean to you, so why are you mean to yourself? All that to say, as soon as I was like, I'm in burnout, I changed my mindset into thinking that it was a physical injury. I'm going to use the metaphor of like breaking your ankle while running a marathon. So let's say that doing your project, doing your passion, or just living life is like running a marathon. You're just chugging along, you're not sprinting, maybe you're running a little bit fast, maybe you can slow down a little bit, but anyway, so you hurt your ankle and you're in the middle of the woods and you're like, man, I hurt my ankle, but I need to end this, I need to get through this marathon. So you get through the marathon, you get out of the woods, and basically what we ask ourselves a lot out of burnout, or at least what I asked myself, was I got out of the woods and I was like, man, I hurt my ankle doing that. I'm gonna run my next marathon tomorrow. I'll just take today off. And I kept asking that out of myself. And then I would go like, well, I thought you were a marathon runner, Catherine. What the heck? Why aren't you wanting to run the marathon? And just totally disregarding the, like broken ankle. Even if I did identify the broken ankle and like, let's say I went to the hospital, I would walk out of the hospital and totally just disregard the physical therapy that you have as soon as you leave the hospital. And things like that. And so like when you put it into that kind of perspective, it seems very silly. And so the kind of like physical therapy is maybe like other projects. So I spoke to my specific therapist about this when I was in stress management therapy, and also I was reading The Artist's Way, and they seem to echo each other. So I am not a therapist. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm just talking about my experience. So here it is. So as soon as I was like, hey, for me, the physical therapy was like maybe actually allowing myself to rest and like sleep, or it was allowing myself to indulge in other artistic forms. Like I got more into collaging and journaling. I got more into doing journal spreads instead of just being like, oh, well, whatever's quickest with journaling and things like that. I allowed myself just to kind of like theoretically slow down and smell the roses while I was in recovery. And then also I looked at my writing as recovery instead of going like, well, I used to run these races all the time. Yeah, that's cool, but now you have a broken ankle. You can't run a race quite yet. Calm down a little bit. So I would sit myself down and I would set myself really small, achievable goals. And I would try very hard not to judge myself while doing that. Sometimes the goals would be just to open the document and read one sentence. Literally one sentence. One page at one time was too daunting for me. Sometimes it is just to print off the document. Sometimes it is to just open the document and stare at it and see if something happens. Or sometimes it's just to sit down and spend a certain amount of time. I will say that this time used to be 90 minutes, and that was way too long. It was just so daunting. So I think I cut it down to 45 minutes, and then that was daunting. Cut it down to 30, 20, and then on desperate days, it was just stare at the document for 5 minutes. And for certain people, word counts are really helpful with that. Since I was in a revising period, this was not helpful for me. Like, setting a certain word count was just not helpful. I understand that certain people, like in the revisions, will count like what word out of the document it is. I never did that. I actually didn't know it was a thing until later. I'm now in like outlining certain projects and just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna spend this amount of time on it. And I did go to like live streams of authors and writers and ask them when they had full-time jobs and say like, hey, how did you do this? And a lot of them told me lower your expectations, which was very, very hard to hear with my all or nothing personality type, because I was like, what do you mean you don't just sit there for hours and hours on end and things like that? So, but like having these lowered expectations and going like, okay, we are just going to write for 30 minutes, and then also broadening my term of writing, which I did mention in my Great Lock-In video, where like reading the document is also considered writing, typing words in the document is considered writing, planning in my planning in my journal, the kind of like what if scenarios, like what if instead of ice cream, they ate a sandwich. Kind of thing. That is also considered writing. Editing is considered writing. Just a very broad stance on writing, uh, because it's progress. Progress equals progress. And that's really what the goal is. And then changing the goal from like, oh, well, we have to write every day to I just want to shoot for consistency also kind of helped me. Making little planners for my projects was also kind of considered writing. It was kind of up to how I was feeling. If I was having a very low energy day and that's all I could do, then that was my writing for the day. That one I will say kind of be tricky. I know a lot of people procrastinate on those kind of things. I'm talking specifically about creative writing, but this actually could apply to anyone in any art form or any productivity kind of thing, or even journaling. So a lot of people are like, how do you journal so consistently? That one is pretty easy for me. I talk to it like it's a friend, and I yap a lot, as you can tell, because I have a whole series called Chat with Kat. Which this video is a part of. But if you're like having issues journaling, then let's say just open your journal and sit down for like even 1 minute to 2 minutes and just say, hi, journal. I don't know what to talk about, but I have a timer going for like a minute and I have to yap to you. And it's really daunting, but I want to make this a habit, yada, yada. And then you just keep working up until it just becomes natural. So full disclosure, this is about like maybe the third time I have voiced over this. Each time I'm trying to get slower, but also I wanted to make another point that I didn't make in the previous two talking voiceovers, which is that this could also help for overcoming just mental obstacles as well. So I'm going to give a real life example that I'm facing. I am deathly afraid of escalators. I hide this very well when I'm out with like random people, but I always take the stairs and I always play it off of like, oh yeah, I just prefer to be more active and actually get those steps in. And typically that works, or typically going like, oh, can we take the elevator works and stuff like that. But I am deathly afraid of escalators. I got a walking pad, which is basically like a flat version of an escalator. So it's not that bad, but it's still very daunting. And I bought it, unboxed it, had it in my room, and then like completely avoided it as if it was a danger pad. And how I kind of like eased myself into it was kind of with these same techniques of like, okay, I'm just going to turn it on and then I'm going to pull out the remote. I'm going to press random buttons on the remote, figured out how to work on it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to turn it on, see how it works and let it run for a little bit. And I'm going to stand on it. And as soon as I saw like how slowly it went, I gained some confidence of like, okay, I'm not gonna die if I fall off this thing. And So then I stood on it, I braced my knees for impact, and then I turned it on and it was actually not that bad. And now I can like, kind of walk normally. Editing Catherine here. The universe heard that and now I'm in a boot. So I'm not walking on my walking bed anymore. Not because I'm afraid or because I gave up on it, but because the doctor literally told me not to. The universe really did say, wow, you're gonna use a analogy about like, hurting your ankle and to get over burnout. How about you experience that physically? So then you can know if the analogy works or not. So far, it's the same. I didn't address the kind of craziness feeling that I'm feeling about not being able to walk when I want to be way more active and cannot be as active as I normally am, but maybe that's another video. But again, it's just kind of the baby steps, I think, is the main point of this, because when you're injured, again, going back to that broken ankle metaphor, when you're injured, you baby step back into recovery until you can go on with your normal life as you would. I think that's just like the big thing, and it was the big thing that I was avoiding for many, many years. I did not believe in baby steps because I had the all or nothing personality. Where I was like, what do you mean that you just want me to take a tiny little baby step when I could do a whole leap? So, but this genuinely helped me, and that's why I'm wanting to make this video, this little chat with Kat. That's how I changed my mindset to kind of help me get out of my burnout. I'm not going to say that I'm completely out of burnout. If I can use another metaphor for burnout and say that being burnt out is like being in a very like sticky, deep pond, and you feel like you're drowning and flailing around, and then you have to crawl this pond and you have all the algae and all the weeds of the pond, and all the grossness. And then you're on the bank and then you have to crawl out and then you're in the woods and then you still have to get out of the woods. Like I would say that maybe like I just crawled out of the bank and like I'm in the pond. I'm still kind of going about it. And then also I would like to note that other factors in your life will also affect your burnout, which is something that I just absolutely refused to believe at first until I was forced to kind of believe it. I like to believe that my life is living in separate little boxes, that the work stress that I have does not follow me home, and the home stress that I have does not follow me to work, and all that stress does not follow me into my writing den, and all of that doesn't follow me into everywhere else, which is completely a lie, at least for me. Maybe for you it works out, but not for me. So changing my space that I was in, decluttering my office that I actually started last year, really helped in my house. Changing my job really helped. Changing the city that I lived in also really helped. For me, sometimes changing the people that had access to be around me really helped. So also kind of take into those factors, which, and if you like to journal, maybe this is something that you can write down in a journal and kind of say like, hey, what things are kind of like the problem areas? What is my challenge line? To kind of make a reference from My Cat from Hell, Jackson Galaxy. So what is my challenge line? What makes it hard for me to get past this? What's a sticking point here? And if it's like, man, this person just really makes me feel like that I am worthless and I'm awful and just makes me really feel bad after I visit them, maybe ask yourself, do I need to be around this person? And if you're like, oh man, like this work environment that I am in makes me feel very awful, or it makes me feel very stressed out and anxious, and I come home and I'm having to deal with that stress and anxiety, and therefore it's preventing me from doing what I want to do, then like I know it's easier said than done, especially right now in this economy, but like look into how can I change that? Is there another job? Is there another department I can transfer to? Is there something that I can do about this? And then try and do as much as you can. And if you can't change certain things like work, then try and see if you can change other aspects. Like, is your home actually something that you come home to and you feel rejuvenated and refreshed and alive when you're there, or safe, a very bare minimum. um, And if not, is there something in your room that you can change? Is there something in your office that you can change? Things like that. One of the things that I think really helped me in getting out of my burnout was whenever last year or even the year before last year, when I came home and realized that my house stressed me out because it had half finished projects everywhere. And I was like, time to declutter and also reorganize. That very much helped me out. Is that process done? No, but it's better. And also with practice, it's gotten way better. Like I used to really have a hard time with even deciding what to do with things. Like when I picked up an item, I was like, all right, buddy, where's your home gonna be? Um, it was very difficult for me to make those decisions, and then I just kept at it and kept at it. And I would just move on to the next object of like, well, I don't know, and I would move on, and then eventually I would find an object and be like, I think your new home should be here. And yes, sometimes I did lose those objects for multiple months because I hid them somewhere clever. But all of that to be said, I hope that this helps. I just wanted to make a video, chat with Kat on a deep dive. And also, so sorry to editor Catherine, who's going to have to find footage for this now. All right. I hope that you always find a reason and an excuse to write. Bye bye.